In today's show, we have another of our popular Dynamite Conspiracies episodes, and we discuss what the heck happened to Orion Williamson.
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Taya Boya. Taya, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well. You're on mute.
Well, see, what the hell, huh? What the hell are you going to do?
Even after over 220 shows, you still can't hear up.
The sweet embrace of death, as I tell you, is the only way out.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. Okay. How are you keeping? Are you well, though? That's the main thing.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
I will apologize to our audience out there. I've got a terrible chest infection today, so I may occasionally go off mute while I cough myself silly. So please forgive me if you have little pauses in between where I'm trying to recover from coughing. But as I've got your attention, audience, I will like to remind everybody to like and subscribe to our show. It does help our numbers greatly if you just like and subscribe to our show. So that way you get a notification of when we release every new episode. And we do release one every single week. So yes, please, 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 whatever platform you're consuming our shows on, then please like and comment if you can, but certainly subscribe. That really, really help our numbers. Thank you. Right. Today, we've got another of our wonderful, popular Dynamite Conspiracies episodes. And this is an unusual one. Time permitting, we'll discuss a few. But the first one we're going to talk about is what the heck happened to Orion Williamson. Now, Tayo, this is your sort of baby. Do you want to kick things off and give us an idea of who this guy is?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
I insist on saying hello to the audience first.
Oh, my goodness me. You're going to say hello to the audience. Say hello to the audience.
Hello, audience. I want to share with you the wise words.
You notice I tried to sidestep the whole thing so we are not subjecting our audience to this nonsense from this guy that I'm sure you've made up. He's not a real person, is he? Come on, what pearls of wisdom have we got today? Come on then, let it get off your skin.
And I actually chose an easy one for you, Tony. Even you can understand this one.
Okay. And what's his name again?
Dr. Isaiah Henry Mae-Otamba.
How come I can't find him anywhere on the internet?
I have zero idea. Well, I told you there only about 3 or 4 books of his books left.
Yeah, but surely his name must exist somewhere.
Well, I have no idea. I mean, don't forget, this is Nigeria, 1951.
Okay.
Anyway, so here we go. Seriously now. I made it simple for you. This is one of his simpler, easier ones.
Okay.
The lion cannot purr. The cat cannot roar. Can you imagine? The lion.
It's actually not true.
Sorry? The lion cannot.
It's actually not true.
The lion cannot purr. The cat cannot roar. Wow. It's just amazing. It is true.
It's not.
It is true. Lions can't purr. Lions cannot purr. Look it up.
Baby lions can.
Well, when you talk about the majestic lion, I doubt very much if Dr. Isaiah Henry Mae-Otamba was referring to, he would have said
cubs,
the cub.
Baby cubs.
He would have said the cub cannot purr. He's such a brilliant man. There's no way. If he said the lion, he's talking about your full-grown lion. And if you search for it, lions cannot purr.
Okay, maybe fully grown lions can't, but certainly cubs can, because there's been examples of cubs being in captivity when they're babies, and people and children even who've been playing with them have reported that they purr. So,
yes. So back to the real world with Dr. Isaiah. You, I'm sure, can get to what he's saying, right? So share quickly so that we can get on with the show.
What? That the cats purr and
No, no, yeah. What are you taking away from that? Because I mean, it's simple. I think most people can interpret it.
that a lion can't purr, but a
Hmm.
cat can't roar.
Yes.
Go on, enlighten me. I'm just lost by this, the talent of the man.
Well, obviously, it means that we must each of us adjust ourselves to our natural stations in life and not go against the natural order because we will just end up being frustrated and upset, unhappy, unable to adjust. Our hearts will not be pure. We will be, if you remember last week, we will not be able to be like the mighty baobab tree whose dreams calm the savage savannah. You see how it is all interwoven? You
No.
see now? Oh
No.
my God. All right, let's get on with the show then. I did my best. I did my best.
I'll ask our audience members, what do you think of this
And
little
I'm also
piece
going to
that
send
Ty has
you,
introduced?
I'm also going to send you a link called the
Okay.
National Zoo.sci or something. And as you will see there, it does say the lion cubs cannot purr. So
That's
there you go.
interesting.
There's your link. So Dr.
Interesting.
Isaiah wins, as I thought he might, by the way. Shall we
Okay.
get on?
Let's get on with the show. I'd love to know the feedback from our audience about this little section. Do you believe that Tayo is actually making this guy up, or
No.
does he genuinely exist? And what
Yeah.
do you think of these wonderful sayings? Are they
Oh,
inspiring, or are they
pearls of
confusing
wisdom.
you as much as they are me? Anyway, let's move
Mm-hmm.
on with the show. It is a Dynamite Conspiracy episode, and I'll recap again. It is entitled "What the Heck Happened to Orion Williamson?" So, Tayo, do you want to explain who he is and what happened?
According to various accounts, a certain Orion Williamson living on a farm in Selma, Alabama. I wonder if anyone remembers. Tony, you've heard Selma, Alabama before, have you? Does it ring a bell for any reason? Selma,
Not that
Alabama?
I can recall at this present time.
Selma, Alabama. If you recall, well, you said you don't recall, had a lot to do with the civil rights movement because I believe that is where Dr. What's his name came from originally.
Martin Luther King.
I think so. Anyway,
Okay.
it's something to do with the. I'll have to double check because I started out very confidently and I thought, oh, hang on a second. Yeah, what does it actually mean? So
Okay.
back in July 1854, Orion Williamson on his farm in Selma, Alabama, was walking across the field, turned, waved to his wife and daughter as he was walking towards a grassy area. As he raised his hand and took a step, he literally vanished into thin air, leaving behind his family, aghast, obviously, and neighbors who happened to be passing by in a buggy and just taking in the sights, I suppose, as you would. But there were neighbors, so they knew him, leaving them all astounded and astonished. I mean, the first written case I believe we have, I believe, the first case or the second case we have of someone actually disappearing in thin air, just in front of witnesses.
Okay. So,
Never found.
never found.
Never found. And this was
Also,
documented in a book called Lost and Never Found, 1985, written by an Anita Gustafson. But there are also newspaper accounts, contemporary accounts of the incident. But it was what was it? What did I say again? 1854.
1854.
So a little early, but
I mean,
yeah.
apparently they got about 300 people to search the field where he was
Oh
last
yeah.
seen, and they couldn't find him dead or alive.
No.
They found a dry patch of grass near where he disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
and her son reportedly heard voices which
Yes,
they
that's
thought
right.
was their husband calling out,
Yeah.
even though they could never find him. But every time they ran to that spot, the voices sort of faded away. So, what's the theory here? What the heck could have happened?
Well, there have been various theories. One was a sudden, extremely rare since it doesn't happen often. It's the only case we know. A sudden, ginormous anomaly, magnetic field anomaly discharging. And unfortunately for unfortunately for Orion Williamson, he walked into this thing and it simply disintegrated him.
So, what was the voices that they were hearing? You sure it
Well,
wasn't
that's
some
different.
sort of
No,
a
we're not taking
portal,
that into account.
perhaps?
We're not taking that into account. I'm not these. You've got to stop somewhere. So if you can hear voices, then that's really hard to explain. Because if it's a portal and you are in a different dimension or something, how are you agitating the air in our dimension in such a way that it leads to sound waves, which are the frequency of your own vocal cords? It's a bit of an ask.
But then you could that could lead to what about ghosts? Because ghosts are, as some people seem to theorize, are people moving into our dimensional part moving so we can see them. But poltergeists, for instance, are actually interacting in our dimension. So you're saying, how could his voice have
Hmm.
made it through into our dimension if
Mhm.
he's been through some sort of wormhole or interdimensional doorway or whatever it could be? But he's still communicating. It's because he wants to, just like how some mediums report that they can hear people from the afterlife talking back through in our dimension. So could this be a a similar scenario where he has somehow stepped through a portal, perhaps?
I don't think so. I really don't, because if we knew that ghosts existed and people have heard ghosts speak and so on and so forth, then we could use that as evidence. But since I personally poo poo the existence of ghosts, then obviously that entire line of inquiry doesn't make a great deal of sense. Well, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. For the same reason, ghosts sometimes people who see ghosts sometimes say that they look like this person or like that person. They've got eyes, they've got nose, they've got what? Why? If you're dead, what do you need eyes for? And what are photons bouncing? What are they entering of in the ghost? Are there what the optic nerves in there in this ghostly form? Well, what's it looking at? How's it looking? And when it's speaking, how's it forming words with what vocal cords? You see what I mean?
But you're using our understanding of our humanity
Mhm.
and comparing it to ghosts. It's
Yeah.
like your belief regarding reincarnation, where
Mhm.
our spirits, what's that, for instance? We've got no evidence for that, but
Mhm.
we believe it,
Mhm.
is leaving our realm, our understanding of where we live, going somewhere else, and then coming back again.
Mhm.
So the fact that you say you disbelieve ghosts, possibly,
Mhm.
maybe you haven't researched enough about how they're seen, the type of interactions they have, because you've clearly researched about reincarnation, so
Mhm.
you're quite informed about that particular topic. Hence, your inquiry's belief system around it is stronger because of the evidence you've seen. So clearly dismissing ghosts could be that you haven't got all the information available as yet, hence you can't make a fully informed decision. So
Well,
going back to this Orion Williamson, and we keep on point, could he have inadvertently gone through some sort of portal, interdimensional portal perhaps, and actually gone in the realm where ghosts and afterlife actually exist, for all we know?
I doubt it very much for the reasons that I've said. And when I speak about reincarnation or whatever, actually not selling tickets to cinemas on the other side of life. I am not renting, I'm not leasing rooms to people, individuals, and say, when you get to the other side, tell them Tayo sent you, and hey, you can live in my mansion till I show up. I mean, there's a limit. We just go with the physical evidence of what people say, people who remember what they say and do here on around us using physical laws that we fully understand. There is no need to extrapolate beyond someone having memories that they shouldn't have. Now, when you talk about a ghost, when you hear about ghostly voices coming back from the field, number one, it's not even the main case. The main case is that people were looking at him when he disappeared. That is the central, never-ending kernel nugget of the story. Then you get other stories. How many people were there? We speak about the neighbors, the neighbors, Armour Wren and his son Armour, as in armor, and Wren, W-R-E-N, and his son James were the neighbors in the buggy. You speak about his wife and his son. This is Orion's wife and Orion's son. But other reports have it as Orion's wife and daughter. So it was 1854. There are ifs, whens, buts, and howsoevers. And if we just stick to the central mystery, which for me is you're actually looking at someone and the person disappears, and in shock, you go looking for him and then you can't find him. That to me is mystery enough. I mean, to start talking about ghostly voices and this and that, it's not really necessary. It's like, where did this guy go? That's the question for me.
Okay. Before we answer what we think Orion Williamson's fate was, let me give you a background story of a disappearance of a similar person called David Lang.
Yeah, David Lang.
In Tennessee. Let me tell you his disappearance. Now, in September 1880, David Lang, a farmer in Tennessee, was walking across a field near his home in full view of his wife, children, and 2 other witnesses. He suddenly vanished without a trace. According to the story, Lang was there one moment, and as he stepped across the field, he simply disappeared into thin air. His family and neighbours searched the area, but found no evidence of where he might have gone. Now, again, 2 witnesses, brother-in-law and someone else also approaching in a buggy, saw what had happened and couldn't believe it. Lang's wife, distraught by his disappearance, ran to the spot where her husband had vanished, but found no sign of him. The family searched for months, and at some point, apparently there was a spot that where he disappeared, the grass had died. Now, doesn't this story merge with the first story of Orion Williamson? Are you sure they're not folks' tales that people have actually got the names messed up, so they didn't actually happen because they were urban legends? The stories are too similar from the same time frame to add credence. It's almost like, which one's right and which one's fabricated? Or are they both fabricated? Or are they, or is this an even bigger mystery, where both are actually separate instances and both happened? So something really strange is going on in Middle America during the 1800s.
Well, there are ifs, whens, buts, howsoevers, and I think you put your finger on the nub of things. Not to sexualize the discussion, of course. When what you said, Central America. Okay. Now, you know my feelings about the Americans.
No, they're wonderful people.
When you say to me, Tayo, there are 2 stories of people disappearing in front of other people, really mysteriously, One second they're there, the next second they're not. Where do you think this takes place? I am not going to say Africa, because in Africa we've got real problems, mosquitoes, tsetse flies, whatever. I'm not going to say Asia, because they've got real problems, mosquitoes and other things. I'm not going to say Latin America. I'm not going to say Britain or Europe. Do you know where I'm going to say? This is this one of these American stories. These people who have excited the reprehensible interest of intergalactic travelers who, for some weird reason, have taken a great interest in American proctology. Why is there everybody else on the planet goes about their business, even the ones who are abducted, and they come back and say, "Yeah, I was abducted and I was laid prone, and these people came and they stuck needles into me, and then I woke up." But with America, it's always, "Yeah, I was anally harassed." And I just think that why is it the American? See, so when you talk about people disappearing, anyway, the thing is that's the skeptical side. The other thing is, if we're talking about strange magnetic anomalies, there is the niggling for me and my skepticism about Americans and all that. There's the troubling fact of the Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
Which is in America, but there is definitely something hanky-panky the heck going on there.
Yeah.
Right. So you see, you can't just dismiss everything out of hand. And if it is this magnetic anomaly, what if it was, for example, just devil's advocate, what if it was a period of intense, I suppose we could check this out, a period of intense solar activity, extremely unusual, once every million years or something, one of these really edge cases where there was this solar activity and somehow it interacted with our magnetic field in such a way that these two poor unfortunate individuals in the same from the solar system, from the interplanetary scale, on an interplanetary scale, they were more or less in the same place. Do you see what I mean? On that large scale of looking at 93 million miles from the sun to the earth, they were basically in the same place. By human standards, they were far away, but from that large 93 million miles scale, they were in the same place. So it could have happened to them. I mean, it could have just been a coincidence, a horrible coincidence.
It could have been. It could have been, but I'm applying Occam's razor here. The least likely and a fantastical reason is more likely to be the truth, and the most plausible reason is that this is a fabricated story. That's number one, that the story is false. It didn't happen. These two characters, Orion Williamson, and who was the second guy? David
Lang,
from the similar time frame, were just made up stories, and the names have been interchanged over a period of time. I mean, we've been over 100 years, so it's an urban myth that has just developed, but in reality they didn't actually occur because it was a story. That's what the simplest explanation would be, rather than all these elaborate things, aliens, doorway to another dimension, some magic or whatever. Those are all more far-fetched. I'm not saying they never happen, but we have to apply Occam's razor. What's the likeliest scenario here, based on very little evidence that we have, is that the stories are just that, stories. And even though it pains me that I can't say aliens,
yeah,
I think I have to err on the fact that these are made up stories and are not real.
Well, there's a reason why that is the strongest possibility of all. And that is because there is no absolute evidence that Orion Williamson actually ever existed.
Indeed.
There's no evidence for it. There's no birth certificate, no death. Well, death certificate would have been issued after 7 years of absence. There's nothing like that. So as far all we have is a newspaper single data point, which is always very dangerous when it is one newspaper that starts off the story, and it was one newspaper that first published this story, and then it took off from there. So I believe, on the whole, not even I believe, there's just no strong evidence.
Yeah.
That this was anything other than someone's fervid imagination.
Indeed. I'm joining you with that conclusion, because this Orion Williamson and David Lang, actually, I mean, we don't know much more about him, even if he's a true individual or not. But again, the stories are so similar. The fact that they both report that they were seen walking into a field, that seems too coincidental. Both stories recount they were in full view of their respective wives and children. Again, is that a coincidence? Both stories recount that they were watched by other people, neighbors. Again, coincidence, maybe. So all of these stories, all these overlaps, seem to conclude that neither story is real. They've just used different names, because that's what happens when stories are passed on to other generations, and over time they are diluted and sometimes rearranged and so forth. And this is what I think's happened here.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we've debunked those two. Let's move on.
Before we move on, just quickly, for those who are saying, yeah, but what about Selma? Well, Selma, Alabama, is where the civil rights movement in the 60s really burst into what I'm looking vigor, because on the 7th of March 1965, Alabama state troopers attacked a group of marchers attempting to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, led by Martin Luther King Jr. And the brutality of that attack was captured on television, shocked the nation, and galvanized public support for the civil rights movement. And that was what sort of really lit fire under the movement. So that's why we remember Selma, Alabama. Okay. Sorry about the digression, but I thought people might want to know since I brought it up.
No, interesting side steer, but very relevant. Okay. Let's move on to another one. This one is a strange disappearance of someone called Benjamin Bathurst in 1809. So this was even older than the two stories we've already touched upon. And this one's slightly different because he's a high-ranking British diplomat, and he vanished without a trace while traveling through Prussia during the Napoleonic Wars. Now, unlike many other legends that we can discuss, this is real, but the details of it are a little bit murky. So there isn't a conclusive explanation for his disappearance, and nothing's been found, no body, no nothing. So I can give you a quick summary of who he was. Benjamin Bathurst was born in 1784, and he was the third son of Henry Bathurst, who was a bishop of Norwich in the UK. Now, in 1809, during the height of the Napoleonic Wars, Bathurst was sent as a British envoy to the court of Austria. So he was tasked with negotiating support for the British against Napoleon's forces. So after the Austrian defeat at the Battle of Wagram in 1809, Bathurst's mission actually failed. So he was set to return back home to Britain via Northern Europe. Now, he had to go through a dangerous route through Prussia, which was under the influence of Napoleon and the Napoleonic France at the time. So he had to travel incognito, so to speak, under a different name. And he chose the name Baron de Kock. So it avoided drawing attention to himself. So this is recorded. So this we have some evidence for. Now, in November in that year, 1809, he arrived in a town called Perleberg in Prussia. And again, this is documented. And he stayed in an inn called the White Swan. Now, he was concerned for his safety, and he took precautions because obviously due to the French being there. So he would check on his horses periodically, personally, to make sure no one had tampered with them so that he could ride off. You know, someone could undo the lead, he could fall off and hurt himself and kill himself. So he kept checking this. And also, he was worried that someone could sabotage things. So that evening, he was dining and with a local merchant called Herr Kraus. So Bathurst went to inspect his carriage one final time before leaving the venue. And witnesses saw him walking around the front of the carriage, and then he suddenly vanished. Now, his servant who was with him, Kraus, and other bystanders walked towards the horses where he'd just literally been seen, and he was never to be seen again. Just literally disappeared. And everyone was scratching their head. They authorities, because he was part of the British Empire at the time, ordered an investigation. So the authorities searched for him. They dredged rivers, they searched forests, they questioned other locals, but nothing was found. What they did find a little while later was some belongings which were his, trousers, but many, many months later in a wood nearby. So that suggests foul play, perhaps, but nothing else was found. His body wasn't found, nothing like that.
I beg to differ.
Oh, go on. You got
As a
something
matter
else?
of fact, in that post house in Perleberg, or I don't know how you pronounce that, Perleberg?
Perleberg, yeah, Perleberg.
Perleberg.
In Prussia.
Okay. Yeah, Prussia. Well, now
Where was
Berlin.
Prussia actually in Northern Europe? Was it? It was
Berlin area. It was the old
Germany.
the old German, well, part of that went
Germania.
from Berlin towards Poland and parts of Poland and that sort of thing. That was Prussia. Yes, are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember he vanished on the 25th of November 1809.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years. I have to do quick maths here. 52 minus 9. What's 52 minus 9? 43. 43 years later, a human skeleton was found during the demolition of a house on the Hamburg Road in Perleberg. Whether the two were connected or not, we don't know, but there is that to consider. Now, the thing is this. I don't find this mysterious, and I'll tell you why. He was on official government business.
Mm-hmm.
He would have had funds on him.
Oh, God, absolutely.
He was renting, changing horses, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And he was basically an agent of the state.
Yes.
Now,
back then, which is amazing, but yeah.
He was an agent of the state, and he was an enemy country.
Absolutely.
Look, I mean, he disappeared. It's like, what did you think was gonna? What did you think was gonna happen? And those people who said that they saw him, and then he disappeared, and they searched for him and they couldn't find him. I have a feeling that some of them were quite flush.
Yes.
For some time.
Indeed.
Some time afterwards.
Yeah. I think they grassed him up.
Yep. And his what he had on him, and then the clothes. So they grassed him up. They got their cut. And yeah, maybe he was an unpleasant fellow. I'm not saying he's dead, so he can't defend himself. Who knows? But and then he was young as well. So 25 years old. You might still believe in the milk of humanity and that sort of thing, and he might just have trusted the wrong people.
Yes, that to me is the most plausible thing here.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't that big a mystery, as you
No.
rightly say. This is actually either abducted by French agents
Yep.
or murdered by some scallywags that his supposed friends or colleagues at the time set him up because they knew he was wealthy.
Or did it themselves.
Well, indeed, they could have done, absolutely, just
Mm.
to arrange it and make it look that way, and then all shut up shop and
Yeah.
predict that he just disappeared into thin air. When in reality, he was just robbed and killed for his money. And at the end of the day, as you rightly say, he's in a foreign country, so they can get rid of the body quite easily. No one can see, and then they're never going to find it again. So yeah, is this a mystery?
A murder mystery rather than anything else.
Yeah, it's not a something pseudo happened to him. He didn't disappear through a vortex. He
No.
wasn't captured
No,
by
nothing like that.
aliens.
No, no.
This so it's a genuine story because it
Mm.
was documented, and the British government also reported him missing. So it's all been recorded that it did actually happen. But as we say, it's it's nothing mysterious other than a robbery, a murder, or an assassination or abduction by the French themselves.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's a pretty simple one, in my opinion. Not
Me
really.
too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, another one. Now, this one is slightly odd. This is the Flannan Isles Lighthouse
Ah,
campus
right. No, here
in
we go.
1900. Do you want to explain about this story?
This was an interesting one, as you say, rightly say. Here's one of the more interesting ones. This is about three lightkeepers: Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, and MacArthur. Donald MacArthur, a more Scottish name you never come across. Donald MacArthur. And the date and time, December 1900. Exact date is not specified, but well, actually, we don't know when they disappeared, but we know when they weren't there any longer, if you see
Yeah.
what I mean.
Hmm.
And this is on the Flannel Isles, no, from the disappeared from the Flannel, Flannan, Flannel Isles Lighthouse. And their relief vessel, the Hesperus, arrived at the island on Boxing Day, December 26th, and found the lighthouse well, okay, I'll finish what I'm saying. Some reports say they found the lighthouse in disarray. Other reports say they found the lighthouse in perfect order. So there is that. No, not exactly clear what the
Yeah,
situation
I
was.
heard that they found the kitchen table had food on it, so it was appeared undisturbed.
Right. So there was a thorough. The men weren't there, ought to have been. So obviously, usual thing, thorough search, and the couldn't find anyone. So the captain of the Hesperus, Jim Harvey, believed that the men had somehow been blown over the cliffs and drowned while trying to secure a piece of equipment or something. So, as you say, maybe they were having a meal. There was a storm. They said, let's go and make sure that's XYZ is securely fastened. They went out together and they tried to fasten whatever it was, would attend to business, shall we say. And unfortunately for them, they all got swept out to sea and died, which is kind of logical when you look at it that way. Unfortunately, there are if, whens, buts, and howsoevers that make you ask further questions. If they had the Hesperus, the men on the Hesperus had gone in, found the place in total order, found the food on the table, and that was that, like one of these disappearances on the Mary Celeste or something like that, then that would have been the end of it. But there are reasons to ask questions, you see.
The thing is, the Hesperus that arrived on the 26th of December, that was to bring in a relief vessel.
Mm-hmm.
and bring them supplies and rotate the crew, because they obviously did shifts in order to man this lighthouse. But what was strange, because on the 26th, supposedly they found the lighthouse dark, no flag flying from the pole, and there was no sign of life. But as we've already touched upon, there was food on the table, as if they'd left in a hurry, but it was all prepared. However, this didn't start on the 26th. On the 15th, we're talking
15th,
over
yep.
10 days before, the lighthouse was dark, and a passing ship called the Arctur noticed that the light wasn't operating, and they reported it to authorities when they docked. So there was a gap of about 10, 11 days after this reporting that the lighthouse wasn't actually operating. We don't know what happened in that time frame. What was a relief vessel gone to investigate, or did they just assume and leave it to the three guys there to fix the lighthouse itself? But clearly it hadn't been working up until the 26th. So what had been going on between those intervening days? How could there have been food on the table on the 26th of December when the lighthouse itself was not functioning from the 15th? The gap is a too big a gap. Unless, simple explanation, they couldn't fix the light. Simple as that. They had no supplies, they had no spare lights, they just simply couldn't fix it. So they remained on those islands because they couldn't go anywhere else, waiting for the relief ship to come and relieve them. And then obviously they would have hopefully brought supplies, spare bulbs, what have you. But they didn't make it because they disappeared. That could be an option. I don't know. What's your view?
Well, one of the more intriguing aspects of this particular disappearance is that the log, the lighthouse log, contained entries leading up to the 15th of December complaining of low morale and of bad weather. However, as far as we know, there was no bad weather. So that's a problem. This is why the captain, whatever his name I said, Jim Harvey, his theory that these people were blown into the sea and carried away during a severe storm doesn't bear up to scrutiny, because there were no reports of severe storms in those 11 days or so.
Could there have been a more localized torrent of water or something, so they did meet their demise because the water was somehow thrown up in those isles, whereas the mainland didn't get that information and didn't see it? You must remember, this is 1900.
Yes.
There's very little communication. I think they had telephones back then, but again, that's the only thing. Did they have one on the lighthouse? We don't know. Not enough information.
I wouldn't have
So
thought so. No.
no. So how could they have communicated problems back to the mainland? Did they use Morse code, for instance? Was
No,
that
I think
available?
in those days you hung in there until the relief ship showed up. That's how historically lighthouse keepers operated before radio and all that. You had to be self-sufficient. You had to be the kind of person who could be on their own for 6 months and look after themselves. If they fell and broke a leg or whatever, you were on your
Just deal
own.
with it. Yeah.
Just deal with it.
Yeah.
Pretty gritty men out there
Indeed.
who are doing that
It's,
sort of thing.
it's interesting you said about the morale element,
Yep.
that they reported that in the log because they had to
Yep.
fill in a log. What isn't reported is, was there any logs past December the 15th, which was the first date that the lighthouse went dark? That's what we haven't got information on.
We don't have information on that. But I will say one thing. Apart from the log and this and that, it does stand to reason, because this is what tends to happen. Somebody goes out, gets into trouble. Someone goes to help, gets into trouble, and then the third person doesn't just go, well, you two guys, I'll tell them what happened. Sweet journey to the other side. The third person thinks, well, I've got to try and help. I mean, come on. And then they've all gone.
Yeah.
So, and then it's a wild sea. If there's a car that takes you out to sea, you will never be found.
Yeah.
You'll never be found.
What was reported, which was strange, was when they found the lighthouse, two of the three
Yep.
oilskin coats
I was going to mention
were
that, yes.
missing. So
Mhm.
that means two of them must have put them on to go out and left one behind, which is the normal practice. You're not all supposed to leave. But then the third guy, who obviously must have been preparing the food, must have been concerned. Well, where are the other two? Where are they? And went out trying to find them and got himself into difficulty as
Just
well.
to look, possibly. Just
Yeah.
to stand on the balcony and look. Then he looks down. He sees these two people maybe clinging to the cliffs or whatever.
Yeah.
And
or
they're like,
something.
oh, they're about, oh my God. And then he goes rushing out, doesn't even take his oil skins or anything. And then he too is lost. See, that
Yeah.
to me, it kind of explains everything. There's no mystery after that.
It does. It does. I mean, it's not, again, it's not portals, it's not
No.
aliens. It's they're in a very dangerous environment to begin with. So, it's not safe. Clearly, they're there for a reason, to protect ships coming by, because the rocks will destroy a ship, in seconds. So they're in a hazardous location, which is obviously being bombarded by waves. And it doesn't need to be really bad weather. It could be enough to cause an issue where something perhaps was, I don't know, damaged by the water. So two of the guys went out to investigate, slipped, got into trouble. As you rightly said, the third guy then eventually walked out too, and he got caught up in the mess, and they all passed away tragically, based on the location. You've
Although,
you
that
sent me a
said,
picture here, by
I've
the way.
sent you a picture of the actual lighthouse.
Oh,
And looking at it, it's not actually placed in a place in such a way that you think this is precarious.
it's not, is it? Actually, are
It's
we
it's
100% sure? We'll share this photo with the
it's from
audience.
Wikipedia. I'll do what I'll copy the link as well. So
Yeah.
here's the link that will take you to the page. So I'm looking at that and going, well, that's not really that bad of a place. But
No,
of course,
no.
it's not dark. It's not 1900s. No power, and it's sunny, and it's calm. It could be a completely different story in a horrible storm.
Can I share this with because then our
Oh, we can share the
listeners, our
link,
viewers,
but
yeah. No, I
obviously
can
they'll
actually
have to
share the
see.
picture. I
Oh,
can
can you?
share the picture, yeah, on here, so you'll see
Okay.
it now.
Oh, right.
If I share this very briefly, can you see the picture?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's for
Beautiful.
our watching audience. I apologize to our listening audience. You'll have to click the link to see the picture. But for our watching audience, you should be able to see now the actual lighthouse, which doesn't really look like it's on crashing waves, does it?
No, it
So
doesn't.
I'll stop sharing that. So yeah, that's rather odd. That surprised me somewhat, because I was in my mind thinking that the lighthouse was a really tall thing on
Yeah, very
literally
thin
rocks
on
near the sea.
slippery
Yeah,
rocks,
yeah.
and you lose your footing and you're into the. No, this seems quite reasonable.
That doesn't look too bad. It's
So
like a house and a
quite
lighthouse, and people
mysterious
walk around
after
it.
all, to be honest.
Hence why I wanted to double check, what is this genuinely the right place? Because this looks quite pleasant to me, not
Well,
difficult
I
at
am
all.
warning you that I am warning you that it's a calm, sunny day.
Yeah, but even
Uh,
if the weather's bad, that doesn't look like an inhospitable place, does it? So
well,
how
you're
could
looking at the
guys,
shallow end of the cliffside,
right?
so there's
Okay.
another end. I could send you another picture if you want
Yeah,
to.
you must have sea. That's the whole point. So there
Sorry.
must be sea
Well,
visible from
there's
the
a
other
gentle
angle.
side, and then there's the other side,
Yeah,
which obviously is less salubrious.
indeed.
And there you go, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
This is still the you see the nice, gentle, sloping, winding path down to the
Yeah.
sea.
Well, again, that's not right on the cliff edge. So I'll do this again for our watching audience. I'll share it again. This is the other picture that Teo has shared with me. And as you can see, the lighthouse is far from the edge of the cliff.
But now I'm
So
going to show you a picture. I'm going to share with you another picture
interesting.
from a different angle.
Okay.
And
Of the
then
same site.
same side. This is black and
Okay.
white though.
Yeah. Just for our listening audience, I don't want to eliminate them because they're probably thinking, what
Yes,
is going on here?
poor chaps, poor
This,
people. Yeah.
yeah, this
Well, look at this then.
lighthouse is what? 100 meters away from the actual rocks? So it's quite a way away
But I'm
up on
warning
the
you,
hill.
that's on one side.
Yeah.
But if you look at the last picture I sent you now, which is in black and white,
Okay.
you
This is
can
an
see
older picture.
it's an older picture.
And this is probably the best one out of the lot in terms of what the lighthouse shows.
Hmm.
Again, I'll share it once more with our watching audience. It's black and white. So again, we will share this for our listening audience so you can see. But the picture itself, you can see the sea behind it. You're still quite high up.
But if you
You're,
come this way,
what do you mean by
if the
this
guy
way? What does that mean?
towards the camera in this third picture,
Yeah,
so if you come out, your two pals have gone missing, or your two colleagues have gone missing.
yeah,
You come out, you look down towards the sea on the other side, it's gentle slopes. You
yeah,
don't see anyone. You turn this way, which is less gentle, and then you see something this way.
right.
That's what I'm saying could be problematic. If you come out there and think, oh, they're in
Yeah,
trouble, and you come rushing out there. So we've got this Facebook group
yeah,
called TNT Talkers.
yeah,
So when we upload this episode onto TNT Talkers, we'll include these pictures.
yeah. So you can have a look for yourself if you're
Yes.
catching our show on audio only and then decide whether or not they died mysteriously. See, that to me looks more like a, a quite pleasant place to stay. Yes, you've got a lighthouse above you, and even if the weather is bad, I'm unsure how they could have come a cropper. Why would they venture out of their little space and go near
Well,
the
to
water at
secure
all?
something or the other.
Possibly,
That's
but
what that's the official. That was actually part of the official finding, and they went out to secure something and got lost. So it says here a crane. I don't know what sort of crane they were securing, but that's what it says. They went out to secure
interesting.
the crane and supplies or supplies, and they
Yeah.
were swept into the sea.
Well, possibly, unless there was high winds as well, and they didn't take that into account because it is an exposed area. They're going
Mm.
to be prone to more winds than anything else. So there is that possibility too. But now, after
Anyway,
seeing the pictures,
yes.
I'm more of the I'm leaning more on the strangeness of it because before the pictures were shown, I had this mental image in my mind as to what this light tower would look like, lighthouse would look like. And I'd had this image that it literally was positioned on the rocks. So had they come out at the bottom, they could have ended up, being flooded, being dragged away quite easily. But now that I'm seeing this image, which is pretty much on a hillside, far away from the sea, it adds more intrigue to the story because it does beg the question, how could three experienced lighthouse men at the time got themselves in such trouble and disappeared when they're not really close to the water's edge? There's a big distance between the water's edge and the lighthouse. We are talking about 100 meters. You
As long
can't.
as you don't say aliens. that's that's my only demand.
It's an interesting one. Now we've seen the pictures, it's add more intrigue to the story for sure.
Okay,
Unsure as
let's
to.
move on because I'm worried that you're going to say we're out of time, and
No,
I've
no,
left the
we've got
best.
5 more minutes and we've got the
Oh,
best till last. Let's fit this one in.
this
Okay,
is
so
the
what's
best
your
one.
conclusion on that story then? They just got
I
into
think it
trouble.
was an unhappy circumstance. Yes, that just people got into trouble, and unfortunately, for some reason, they all perished.
Psychological breakdown, baby?
No, no, I think just like I said, two men went out to do something. Third chap saw they were in trouble, went out to help, but couldn't save them and lost his own life too.
Okay, interesting. Okay, the final one we want to talk about is the disappearance of Frederick Valentich in
Absolutely.
1978. This one's far more recent.
Yep.
Now, this one is linked to UFOs.
Yeah, I thought Johnny
Yeah, I
would
thought
want
I
to get
like
into
this
this.
one because this is a young 20-year-old Australian pilot, and he vanished while flying a small Cessna over the Bass Strait, and it's a body of water between the Australian mainland and Tasmania, so at the bottom of Australia. And it became famous because he disappeared without a trace. They didn't find any wreckage, but what was captured was a very strange conversation that he had with air traffic control before he disappeared. And he had claimed he was being followed by a UFO.
Hmm.
So, do you want to give
This
detail about his background
gentleman,
quickly?
pilot Frederick Valentich was his surname, Frederick first name. Frederick reported an unidentified flying object following him, describing it as hovering and not an aircraft. He was then interrupted by a strange, unidentified sound, and his transmission ended abruptly.
It's like a metal sound, apparently. They were saying it likened to a metal sound.
Mm. And there was, well, obviously, plane disappeared and radar didn't track it, couldn't track it any longer, so on and so forth. Couldn't raise the pilot on the radio. So the process took place. Search efforts were made and went out looking for this plane, and never found anything. No trace of Valentich, no trace of his aircraft, no signs of wreckage, no oil slick, nothing.
Mm.
So a genuine mystery. This one is the genuine article
Yeah,
because we got the
this
guy
one
on
is
the
strange.
radio saying weird things and
Mm.
then disappearing. And if
Yeah,
you don't believe in little green men such as myself, you are left with a rather ticklish problem of explaining this.
yeah. Now, there are some suggestions. There are some things that are really strange about the story, though, because he didn't own the plane, he rented it, which is quite common in Australia. And he was going to Moorabbin, he was going, sorry, from Moorabbin Airport in Victoria, Australia, and his destination was King Island, which was across the Bass Strait, about 125 miles away. So quite a small distance. It's not a long distance. Cessna can easily do it in a short period of time, a couple of hours flight time. It's not a long time. And according to his flight plan, which you have to file before you fly, you have to tell the authorities where you're heading, what planned route you're planning to go to, and why you're going there, etc. And he submitted this report that he was going to King Island to meet some friends, pick some up, and return back to Moorabbin. However, after his disappearance, they discovered that no one was actually expecting him in King Island, and no arrangement had been made for picking anyone up. No one knew anything. So that was strange in itself. Why would he send us a flight plan in saying he was going to this particular location to pick some people up when the people he was supposed to pick up knew nothing about it? That was strange in itself. So that adds a little bit of oddness to the story.
Mm.
But you are right. The conversation with air traffic control was all documented, time, exactly what happened, and the last communication was at 7:06 p.m. with the Melbourne flight service, and then he disappeared from the radar a couple of moments after that. And that was when he was reporting this unidentified craft following him. So what the heck was that for?
I'm very surprised to hear about this. He told him what he was going to do. This is the first time I've mentioned in our previous episode, actually, that or was it in one of our pre-show chats, that I follow air crash investigations quite avidly. I've never heard of anyone explaining what they're going to do when they get to the destination. It's not part of any flight plan
Well,
agenda that I know. You just
you're
what
just
time are you
going
going to
there and then
leave?
coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what business is it of anyone?
It's nobody's business, but
No, so I don't know why he'd do that. So I poo-poo that immediately.
it's
Now,
a
what you are
strange one.
supposed to
Why would
do,
you? You don't have to volunteer that
of course
information,
not. You never would. So
but you
I
do have
think
to
that's
volunteer where you're going.
where you going. What time
Going
do you
and where you,
expect to get there? So
yeah.
when you're going to be late, basically,
But
and what
he
you're carrying in
added
case
that, yeah,
you had something. If you're carrying nowadays, if you're carrying lithium-ion batteries, you need to say because we might know why you've disappeared. That sort of thing. So,
indeed.
but let's not discuss that. That's just so
Yeah,
I don't
it
know who
just
came
it's
up with
just
that.
a distraction
Yeah,
almost, but
yeah. I don't
it's
know who
not
came up with that.
relevant to the story in so much
No.
that he did disappear.
More interestingly, is that the the flight duration, there might have been some kind of misunderstanding somewhere because you expect a 40-minute flight, but according to some sources, his flight duration was 5 hours. But that's just put down as a question mark in the report I'm looking at. So we have no idea why that should even be an issue because on a flight plan, it's either A or it's B. You're looking at the flight plan. Does it say 5 hours or does it say 40 minutes or whatever it's supposed to be? So that doesn't make a great deal of sense. But I'm concentrating on the fact that the official report was so silly that doesn't make a great deal of sense. The official, or rather the semi-official report is that the pilot became disoriented and was flying upside down.
He wasn't that experienced a pilot, though. Remember, he was only 20 years old, but he had done over 150 hours of flight time, which isn't bad for a 20-year-old.
Yeah, still, it's not a great deal.
No.
However, you're flying upside down and you're mistaking the lights on the sea, which are your lights, by the way. Would you describe that as hovering? Because you're traveling and it's traveling. Why would you say it's hovering? Right? And you're actually on the air. And if there's a suggestion that the metallic sound that was heard was the plane entering the water, why not an oil slick?
Indeed. That's the strange thing.
Where's the wreckage?
Yeah.
So
there should be some wreckage because it floats. It doesn't
and by
sink.
the way, is there not suggestion, or at least is there not a report that a witness on the beach saw these strange lights in the sky?
Yeah, the
and
lights
reported them.
were reported again.
So the story about that being a reflection on the ocean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right?
So other people have seen something, but also green. Green is not a light that planes use, because that was what he mentioned. There was a green light and it was hovering over him by about 1,000 feet and it was playing games. I mean, the logical view, again, Occam's razor, we could say, yeah, he could have got disorientated somehow, got confused somehow. There's too many of these. Confusion, got confused, misinterpreted. These are all errors that are, multitude. You can make one error, you might even make two, but what, 3 or 4 for all these to add up? That the chances.
Well, that
of
is how accidents
slim.
do happen, unfortunately.
But and then not discovering any wreckage.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? That the lack of an oil slick, because you enter the water, obviously at full cruising speed, because you don't think you're going to crash, so you are just flying at what you think you're flying level, and you find the right way up, and everything.
Yeah.
And you actually impact the water. Yeah, we're going to impact the water at full speed. That's going to break the aircraft up, and we are going to release oil and other.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be some spore, as you say.
Precisely.
But there wasn't, and that was.
And then bodies, they get larger, and after death they swell up, and then they explode, and then they float, and then
sorts.
So and then by the way, we're looking, heavy search, and we know where to look.
Yeah, because they knew where he was. and it
So
wasn't far away, but absolutely nothing. So
absolutely
this
nothing.
this one is a strange one.
I
I'm
would say
mindful we
so.
need to wrap up here. What's your conclusion of this particular story?
This is very odd. And by the way, did we mention how long it took for the authorities to actually come up with anything on this?
No.
There was a strange lag of time. Whenever, you see, this is the problem I have with this UFO thing, okay?
Uh-huh.
Whenever you have a serious UFO type incident, when governments get involved, it always goes kind of wonky. It's never straightforward. How come? Why? What's going on? If you don't want to believe in conspiracies, that's fine. I don't want to either. But time after time after time, you just can't get a straight answer when you think a straight answer would just settle everyone's nerves.
Even if they say we don't know.
Yes. But there's always, delays and prevarications and all sorts of weird things. And you just think, so now I don't believe you any longer because you're acting weirdly.
Yeah. I think it's some of that is to do with the fact that they can't respond and make up stories. They don't know. If they genuinely don't know,
Just say don't know.
It looks bad when they don't know. It puts people at
It looks worse
unease.
when they pretend when they shut up.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
yeah, I think I fly into the ocean and then the aircraft remain intact, and that's very far fetched. So it would have been a real edge case that he crashed like in inverted insert in quotes, crashed normally into the sea, but in such a way as he didn't leave any spore. Maybe that's the answer, but it's kind of
Unlikely.
like an edge case. Yeah.
The more common one is, in this case, it is aliens.
Well, I don't want to go that far, but
but he said UFO, so
it's something weird. Well,
yeah,
UFO unidentified, not aliens, just unidentified flight object.
Okay, indeed. Right. Unfortunately, we could talk at length, but we have reached the end of the show for another week.